Amazing. So, Dylan, before I met you, or in fact, when I met you, it was the first time I really understood that there was something more than just a physical part of health, that disease in the body, anything that showed up in the body, it wasn't just a kind of a physical manifestation of disease, that actually there was an emotional side to things as well. And obviously, a lot of the work we do together has to do with emotion and what we call story work, and basically how your life kind of shows up in your body. For someone who's never really had any introduction to this, who is not aware maybe that there is a kind of more slightly more ethereal, less tangible, but otherwise incredibly important facet to health, could you explain in as many details as you want to, or as few details as you want to, what is kind of the energetics of health? What are the energetics of disease?
So I don't know if I'm the authority of the topic in the world, but I will explain or share what I have learned and known and come to experience as well in myself and seen in, in my students' journeys as well. Excuse me. So what we see as the physical manifestation of diseases, or illness, um, it's seen, on the level of the body, on a biological level, on a chemical level. But the body is not something that can be compartmentalized on its own and put in a separate box or drawer, and just shoved away. And then the mind fits in another drawer somewhere else. All things are interconnected, and that's how we are built naturally as human beings. So as a human being, we experience life generally through this physical body, or most people are not even very aware of their bodies, which tends to be the kind of one of the roots of the problem. Um, so we tend to want to relate to things on like a physical, tangible level, which obviously makes sense. And then we've got this mind that needs, it is partly driven by logic, and then there's a part of us that is just kind of, you could say, not logical and expansive. That's the part of us that can, create things, that is creative, that is, you could say, magical. That's, that the logical part of us will kind of struggle to understand. So I've noticed that, and for my own journey, that I used to be very logic driven for a very long time, and everything had to be proven, and then everything had to be tangible. And I think, that has its time and place, as does everything. So the physical manifestation of, illness or disease, what I've learned is that it cannot be separated from, what's going on in the mind. And normally what's happening in the mind, at least to the degree that we can be aware of, is like thoughts and thinking happening. And if you continue to pay attention to thoughts and thinking, then there's, a certain theme or several themes that run it, which obviously leads into our what we call our story work. And then also, yeah, another area that you could say I've specialized in or maybe obsessed over for many years is movement. And I think that started for me when I was at a really young age. I was, bullied in school when I was 7, and then I got into martial arts, and then that led me into yoga many years later. So I've been involved in some kind of movement practice almost all my life, and then obviously there's bouts where it's like on and off. And it doesn't take much to observe that it's not just about the physical movement or the shapes. If if you're talking about yoga, which is one of my areas, um, it goes beyond that, because there's only so much of that you can do before you start to realize, if you even slightly pay attention, that there's more happening underneath, and actually, what I've discovered to save us time is conscious movement and conscious like awareness of breath, and using breath and body connection, and conscious movement can help facilitate healing, as well as on the energetic level. Practices such as meditation can help shift our internal vibration or frequency or emotions that we live in, which then help facilitate or accelerate healing. and or just altogether avoid, us getting unwell in the first place, because, it allows for the body to be in deep rest, if nothing else, like that rest and digest state. And or at least it just brings us out of that fight and flight state, which generally is the cause of most of our diseases, stress. If I, countless number of people that I've talked to, and I've said, like, are you aware that stress, most of our diseases is caused by stress? And pretty much everyone would say yes to that. So that means we're aware of it, but it's just something that most of the time we just ignore, as a fundamental kind of principle around health, if you want, if you want to call it that. And I think ignoring stress and just pressing on, creating more stress, obviously then exacerbates the, I don't know, bringing forth of diseases, the manifestation of diseases. It is the opposite of the body working towards homeostasis and healing. So I didn't plan to create some kind of, like healing modality, or practice, but these practices have the ability to heal. And it's not something that I've created, it's been passed down to me by my teachers and mentors, and I've gone and trained in many different things.
Are there any kind of themes that you've seen, or is there any kind of common denominators of beliefs and thoughts that show up in disease or illness that you've seen in your students or experienced in yourself?
So common denominators of beliefs, like that thoughts that play out in the mind.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually sat down and gone, okay, these thoughts cause those diseases. I don't know, maybe someone has. But what I've observed is that certain thoughts and focusing on certain thoughts will allow us to feel certain feelings, so those feelings, those emotions, have a certain frequency to them. And on an energetic level, that frequency then kind of translates to, on a physical level, in and around a cell environment. It either facilitates and supports healing, or just being in a state of health, and well-being, and like, I want to say vibrant health, but just health even. And then other frequencies that make it just difficult. So now I'm talking from a not logical perspective, but an energetic perspective. From an energetic perspective, I've noticed that when people are in emotions like anxiousness, nervousness, fear, rejection, regret, pain, struggle, suffering, sadness, sorrow, like all those kinds of like really heavy emotions, it makes it harder because they're heavy, heavier emotions. Whereas the lighter frequencies like, peace and love and joy and gratitude, and those kinds of vibrations tend to just help people not only stay in good health, but also just overcome ill health. And actually sometimes quite almost instantly, or like fairly instantly, like, yeah, instantly or fairly instantly.
Incredible. It really is amazing, having experienced it myself, but also seen it in other people, the power of that work. And you talk about sort of yoga and meditation being modalities or kind of vehicles, I guess, with kind of healing and watching the way that these thoughts and these beliefs show up in our life, but also in our body as well. What is it about yoga? What is it about meditation that you think brings that sort of healing capacity into it? And I know you talked about sort of you mentioned focus and awareness, and I know, like, in my experience, that's one of the things. I wondered from your point of view what you've observed, either in your students or in your own experience.
I think I'll start by answering that question by saying I'd be the first one, as someone who's supposedly an expert in the field of yoga and inner work, to say that there's a time and place for everything. And this is not to discredit, medical science and the power of that. So for some people, that's exactly what they need. And that intervention that, medical science can provide, and the instant results that you can get from that, or even the long lasting results, sometimes really is, the right thing to be pursuing. Sometimes it's a combination, and other times, maybe one is better than the other, or is needed better than the other. But to answer your question, as far as like meditation and yoga, the body, quite simply, and I'm just going to explain, I like kind of explaining things in a simple way. Our bodies are built to move, and for a long time, I had this thought that, perhaps age is just a lack of movement. And the more I've kind of studied that area, I've noticed that to be true. So, we all have probably now got more experiences because more people are doing it. People in their 70s, 80s, even 90s that are quite mobile and fit and healthy, and so much of what they do is just movement. So I think, it just comes back to it's not really rocket science, and it doesn't have to be super complex, I think. And I think sometimes we just get lost and lose ourselves, or want to lose ourselves in the complexity of things, when actually we already know the answers. Like things like, we talked about stress before. So, and we know that the body wants to move. And when you don't move the body, you know what happens. And if you eat bad stuff, then the body has to deal with it. So then, the cumulated effect of that is going to be a certain kind of a result that probably, we don't want. So there's simple kind of equations, really, and so movement is really powerful and is needed, because there's only so much of a sedentary life that the body will tolerate. And I say tolerate is because it needs it, kind of like it needs oxygen. It needs movement. It needs to be stretched and strengthened. Like muscles have the energy of wanting to move, like they like to work, they like to be strengthened, they like to be stretched, for example. Our joints of connective tissue need that, and when we move, and kind of bring in deep breathing, our lymph system gets to, move the fluids that it needs to. I mean, the body's, we're a walking miracle. And sometimes, well, actually, I'd say most of the time, what we don't realize is that we're getting in our own way. The single biggest obstacle in our way is ourselves. Me in my life, you in yours, and, someone else is theirs. So on one level is movement, and then meditation, for example, like you don't have to do meditation, you don't have to do yoga. You can go and do something else that actually, you know, um, fills that need that the body has, the mind has. Find something else that maybe you think is much more accessible if there is something better for you, right? Like I'm not here to tell people what to do, but like for me in my journey, all these years, the best tools I found, the most advanced technologically is the most ancient tools. And they work because in a way, the body hasn't really changed that much. It's like, we haven't grown 3 heads and 20 arms. Our body is kind of the same, for a long time now. And so much actually works kind of how it worked before. So many of these ancient practices, there was whatever level of logic involved, and there was also a lot of connecting with their expansiveness, channeling, if you want to say. And it's energetic, and also it's kind of physical, tangible, and logical as well. So yoga and meditation facilitates movement, which then keeps the body kind of, in a very simple way, healthy. And meditation just allows, affords some space, within for the mind. Because especially now, in our day and age today, to say life is crazy is an understatement. So much you don't have to look around too far. Just look around, and there's so much that is just beyond insane, and how do we cope with that? So yeah, you can be making some shapes with your body. And there's a lot of people in the yoga world that would be really good at making shapes, but they don't look at what's going on inside. And they still have breakdowns too, so this is the combination, the movement, like conscious movement, meditation, which then facilitates consciousness, like awareness. And then actually you can accelerate the process by like in a work process where you can place yourself in an environment where someone is skilled enough to guide you through a process, a journey, to actually process what's going on inside, and also being in a loving, supportive environment like community also really facilitates healing as well. And these are all the elements that I've used in building what we do in our community, in our work, and it works, as you've seen.
It certainly does. It
Yeah.
does, absolutely. That's why I keep coming back. It's amazing. When you say, look inside, that you have to look inside yourself, what does that mean? What does that mean?
So most of the time, most human beings, we are like, if you pay attention through our senses, we receive information from the world around us through our senses, and therefore it places our focus into the external world, the world around us, or what's going on in the room around you right now, for example. And that's one part of reality. It is not just limited to what's happening externally. When I say look inwards, I mean pay attention and bring the focus of the mind to what's going on inside, and obviously a simplified version could say like, oh, I'm looking inside my body or inside my heart or inside my emotion, or what does that mean? It's like, yeah, all of that. What's happening on the level of the body by way of sensation, what's happening with your breath by way of sensations, what kind of thoughts are showing up in your mind right now, and what emotions are you experiencing and feeling right now. And we tend not to want to do that, and also we're in a time right now where everything is instant, everything is, and it's kind of spoiled like that. So, any kind of wanting to look inwards would say, no, no, I'll just take a tablet and just kind of ignore it, and numb it down, rather than actually, if you look within, and there's been countless books and experts writing on all these different topics, from like, the body keeps score to all sorts, right? Like there's experts even in our time right now that are talking about it. And in that sense, it's also a really exciting time. We have access to information more instantly than ever. So I think it's like educating yourself and actually like testing out some of these practices. And I said test out, but actually give it a good go. So looking within is like starting to pay attention to what's going on inside. And as you start to pay attention to the body, to the emotions, these are doorways to our healing, is what I found.
It's amazing. And I'm grateful for it, because I think if I hadn't met you and, been introduced to your work, I would never have seen that facet of life, but particularly how that's worked with my health, how that's helped with my health. So it is incredible. You mentioned stress, and that's obviously a huge buzzword right now, as you say, because the world is semi-crazy. And definitely in my community anyway, it's a buzzword as well. It pops up all over the place. Throughout your years of teaching and facilitating, if there is a magic bullet for stress, or if there is, something that you have seen that tends to help people, what is it?
A simple tool which anyone and everyone can practice, because if you're a human, then you have a body and you're breathing, which is probably very likely. If you're if you're listening to this podcast, then you probably have all of those. Then you're already breathing and deepening the breath. as a very simple yet profoundly powerful practice, and people always ask me like, oh, teach me something more complex than that. Like, they want to know all the different like pranayamas and the different kind of like really complex things. And this is where we actually tend to distract ourselves, So a simple practice can be the breath that you're taking right now. And if it helps to feel it tangibly, I'll say like put your hands on your side ribs, and as you inhale, like fill up the lungs completely, and as you exhale, empty out the lungs completely, and pay attention to 10 of those. So an inhale and an exhale is one breath, and if you just do 10 of those, feeling the ribs expand and contract underneath your hands and the ribs, and just feeling the breath, fill up your lungs like a balloon and empty out the lungs from the lungs, is guaranteed, because that's just how the body and the nervous system works. Like, it's guaranteed to calm you down. It's guaranteed to, making me feel more centered, more powerful, in whatever way that it does in that moment. So, like I was just talking, I was doing a session the other day with a group of property investors, and a lot of them are kind of not, don't know any of these practices. And we just did that 10 breaths. And, they were just saying in the chat, like, oh, I feel calmer, I feel taller, I feel more powerful, I feel more centered, I feel, and all of that. And just 10 breaths before that, it was completely different. Like, some of them were frantic and stressed and curious and worried and this and that. So, something like that. And that's just 10 breaths. And it doesn't have to stop at the 10. We can make it a practice through the day. So that doesn't mean you have to sit there and hold your ribs all day long and try and breathe deep. You can go about your day, and as much as possible, keep bringing awareness, like, oh, there I am, short breathing again. Short, sharp breaths is going to make you feel what? Like panicked, probably, right? So if you drop into a deeper breath, then it starts to regulate the nervous system, and we start to become calmer. And not that everyone has to be calm all the time, but, if you're wanting to, let's say, be in your power, you're probably going to make better decisions when you're calmer rather than stressed out. So that's just one simple practice that, can just change your whole life if people actually practice it.
Incredible. And I have to say for myself, it has worked. It works every single time. And it's annoying because it's so simple. But often it's the simple stuff, that's what we need. We want to make it complex. And yeah, it's in the simplicity. That's where the healing is. Dylan, you've been incredibly kind and generous with your time. I always love talking to you. I learn so much. And I hope that if anyone is listening back and they feel as though something has resonated, that they can take it forward with their health journey as well. I can only say for myself that inner work, transformation, yoga, meditation, it's all played the biggest part in my journey. And so I've been so excited to get to invite Dylan on here to share it today. Dylan, if people want to find you, if they want to follow you, if they want to join in with yoga, meditation, anything at all, where do they get your details from?
So I think yoga, meditation, you have some, right? So they probably should come to you there in your community. But people can find me on my social. So just my first name, last name, Dylan Ayaloo. Website is dylanayaloo.com. And there's some email updates that, if you want just to be easy, then you can just put your email in the website and it'll just send you the kind of latest stuff that we're up to.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. And definitely yours is a voice that I think we will want to have back on here again sometime. I can't thank you enough. And yeah, excited for whatever's to come.
Pleasure. And thank you for having me on. And also just, before I close off, I would say like huge acknowledgement to you for your journey and all the work that you've done that I've, been able to witness from afar, watching your journey unfold from that very first awaken to where you are now and who you are now. It's all testament to your work and your commitment to your inner work journey. And thank you. Thank you for having me here. It's been a privilege.
Thank you so much, Dylan.